Well, welcome back to part 2 of the CX Club video on leadership and how it relates to customer experience. I'm back in the room again with me old mucker Christopher Brooks.
Hi,
hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah,
fantastic. Very well. Okay, we're going to have to ask another calibration question of all. So going back to childhood, I suppose for me, the flumps or the Thundercats?
The flumps.
Yeah,
it's the flumps of it. I mean, I've got such happy memories of that. Do-do, do-do, do-do. I did like Thundercats, but I'd always pick the flumps.
I agree. Listen,
that's my soft side there coming out.
This whole thing's supposed to be themed around Fight Club. we should have each other in a headlock at this point or something.
You should be dressed as Shiro.
And you would make a great skeleton. You would, exactly. Okay, so we're going to talk about the next 3 subjects within the area of leadership. Those 3 subjects, I'm looking at my prompt again, are leadership immersion, phasing the program, and issue prioritization. So on to the first subject of leadership immersion. And this is where I found this, and I don't know what you found as well, is that sometimes you write a business case, you become a trusted advisor within the organisation, and you say to them, okay, it's customer experience is a good thing to do, and they go, yeah, customer experience, I'm 100% behind it, I really, really believe in it. And they do, they genuinely believe that customer experience is the right thing to do. But then you might walk away from a board room with all the senior people in there and have individual meetings. And then when you have the individual meetings with the different functional leaders, you say, okay, in order to achieve this, what we might need to do is we need some of your budget, we need some of your headcount, and whilst we're undertaking this particular project, you may see a drop-off in operational performance for a relatively short period of time. When you present that situation to people, although they've bought into the idea of CX, when it comes to prioritization, day-to-day performance versus this new customer experience transformation, very often customer experience falls by the wayside. So you have to go through a process of immersing the leaders within the experience of the customer. Have you got examples where you've had to go about doing this?
Well, I mean, I think I've profited from others' mistakes, if that makes sense. I mean, I remember one particular case where the organisation is in a bad place in terms of its satisfaction scores. It was kind of, it was monitored. It was sat in a bad place, and a large consultancy came in and whispered in the CEO's ear, "This is easy." They didn't understand customer experience. I think they even confused it with CSR, to be honest. But they didn't quite understand it properly, and they said, and kind of took a great big gasp in. You could be number 1 in 3 months.
Oh gosh.
And the CEO went out publicly and said, I think we'll be number 1 in 3, we'll turn this around. And you kind of go, wow. I mean, it's just, and so now...
Cultural change in 5 minutes.
I mean, it just, half the business just kind of went, wow, that's impressive, we don't know what this thing is, we're going to be great at this. And the other half went, oh my God. So the trust was lost there.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of leader immersion, they've got to really understand the steps you go through. I mean, I'm always impressed with 6 transformation programs when the CEO kind of says, can we do a mentoring program alongside this? Can I kind of understand, to your point, what's going to happen to my business as we transform here? What are the particular directions you can go? And it's important. I mean, we've identified there are 25 different customer operating models. And you kind of go to a lot of people and say, tell me what yours is. And they've got no idea. But actually only 5 of those are successful. And 1 or 2 of those actually make you look like you're a mean customer experience organisation, but what you're actually saying is, I'm not investing in customer experience, so don't expect anything. That's not a poor model.
This is interesting.
It's a lean model.
I'm going to jump in then because I had a bit of a disagreement at one point with the very famous Mary Porters because she took a flash mob into Primark on near Marble Arch. And she said, we demand more people on the shop floor in order to deliver a better service to customers. And my argument was, well, no, actually, Primark are delivering a great customer experience. And she was, well, what are you talking about? You go into Primark, there's clothes everywhere, etc., etc. And I said, well, yeah, but their promise to the customer is very, very cheap high street fashion, disposable high street fashion. And part of that model is operating on as low, on low margins and pilot high, sell it cheap kind of thing. And unfortunately, part of that is that when you go in store, you can't have lots of headcount. If all of a sudden Primark suddenly doubled their staff in store, what would happen is their costs would go up, their prices would go up, and they would no longer be meeting they'd no longer be meeting their promise. Yeah. Of course, Primark could do things to make the customer service better, but not necessarily putting people through the door. So that lean model that you talk about of customer experience, those organisations, I would argue, they might not be delivering great customer service, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not delivering a great customer experience.
They kind of, if it was a conversation, would be a case of, right, here's the contract, here's the terms, do you understand it? Yeah, I get that completely. Right, so you know you're not going to get anything from us, don't you? You know this means that we don't have lots of people sitting there in the returns department. You know that. Yeah, I get all that. Great. And then off you go.
Ryanair, Flybe.
I mean, it's the model they kind of use, and I think we unfortunately can jump between Tory Birch on Bond Street and go into Primark and go, why can't you? And of course you can't do that. I mean, I worked with a company who in the gaming sector, and started and went, we want to have the service design principles and the customer experience ethics of Porsche. Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, let's go for this. So I kind of said, great, all right, well, when we come to do the workshop, we'll kind of look and see where you should be. And we sat there and I said, right, so I understand you want to kind of be like Porsche, it's slick, it's beautiful, everything's fabulous, okay? So the first thing we're going to have to commit to is at least 5 years bonus sacrifice, because it is an extremely expensive thing model to achieve.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, hang on. And we ended up with it was quite amusing, a positioning which worked for the sector, because the sector is such a low bar, called one step ahead.
Yeah.
We just stay one step ahead of your customers, one step ahead of your competitors.
Yeah.
And that worked. I mean, that we were always improving the experience just slightly more than other people.
And to be perfectly honest, sometimes that's a better model than trying to be significantly ahead of the competition, because if you're staying one step ahead, it means you're keeping your eye on the ball, and if you're behaving in an agile way, you're more likely to stay ahead of the game.
It was right for the time, and you kind of, these things do evolve, and that's probably the other thing is to remember, I guess, when you're a leader in that position, is this is a forever gesture.
Yeah.
This isn't a project. This isn't a, when you say transformation, it feels like it's an end, but actually we're always transforming.
Transformation and strategy.
From this point onwards, we're going to be carrying on. And I think sometimes as a leader, you've got to be aware of saying to people, we're going on a journey. I mean, I work with a brilliant recruitment consultancy called CX Talent. I think they're the only.
Oh, Joe Van Riemsdijk.
Yeah, fabulous people. Really understand customer experience people, and really are able to find the right fit. But we did a piece of work, kind of identifying. Well, customer experience person comes in, stays forever. No, it's really interesting actually. Is the sort of characteristics and the tenacity you need at the start of a project when you're trying to muscle through and get to the trading table is very different to the finesse and the care you need further down the line for things like employee engagement.
You might need a maverick at the beginning, but you need somebody with a little bit more.
And it's no different. I've worked with pensions companies where you get someone coming gung-ho first of all, who will blazon through and take out all the inefficiency, but are they going to command the respect of people to then say, let's rebuild? Of course not. That's their role. And they move on. And customer experience is no different. To kind of say, I'll come in and I'll be here forever. Well, actually, then you've got a world of one organisation. And one of the things you mentioned earlier about working in different sectors, quite often we will find it's an advantage for a client to say, have you ever worked in our sector? No. Fabulous.
Fantastic.
You can bring so much knowledge and that we don't have from outside of sectors.
Yeah, and I've had this before when I've gone into organisations and pitched in a sector where I've never done work before. And it's really healthy and encouraging to hear them say, oh no, we actually don't want anybody from our sector because we need a new view on it. In terms of leadership immersion, just to sort of close that off, we're looking at the board, by the way, because we've written the subjects down there. In terms of leadership immersion, one of the things that I've identified, and you've kind of spoken about this to a certain degree already, is that you have to immerse the leaders within the world of the customer. Yeah. So one of the things that you did, I know you did a mini tool factory, which was about putting somebody in an environment to say, okay, let's try and look at the world from a different way. Let's try and look at things from the customer's perspective. And then there are other processes like frontline boss, undercover boss, where somebody goes in there. There is, of course...
Have you ever tried parallel journey mapping? So I did this with a startup. I mean, you can do it with an existing client, with an established company. But as a startup, kind of your journey map, what is it we do? And they're like, we don't have, we don't know what these maps are going to look like because we've not had customers go through them. Yeah. So we actually got 2 rooms, and we got a group of customers that have been identified as really wanting this product, and they were on that kind of waiting list. It was a technology product, and we got the business, and actually we went go, and we started to map the different steps as we went through to see their perception of how customers would want the journey to work versus what the customers wanted. Now,
did you provide them with the same framework? Or
it was quite a loose. So it was a loose framework. It was a standard customer journey mapping framework, but of course we didn't have on the customers' ones, KPIs and things like that. But we did have things like customer expectations. We did have, what do you think you will remember in this? I can't say moments of truth. What might you remember many years afterwards about this particular relationship? And what was really interesting, because it's a startup and it was technology, was that understandably that their perception of what it was going to look like didn't really mirror what customers necessarily felt would be of greatest value to them. But they were able to build it as they went. So they were able, the technology guys in the background, well, we can do that, we can do it. So they kind of modified it as they went along. It was a great exercise, and it really kind of helped from day one the owners of the business understand exactly how different customers were going to view it. And also, with startups, okay, you can do that thing that no one else can, but I still want all of the standard stuff. Yeah. So, but that's hard grunt work. Yeah, there's a car, I still want the wheels on it, I still want the brakes to work,
Hygiene factors have to be in place.
You've got a fridge in it, it's brilliant, but kind of need, oh gosh, so all this other stuff. So, yes, absolutely, it has to be done. But sorry, I did interject there.
No, interjection is always good. We discover a whole bunch of stuff if we stick to the topic too much, then we don't actually learn anything. But there are lots of different ways from an immersion perspective. We spoke about, there's mystery shopping, there's what I call customer vox pops. We did that in one project where we actually video recorded customers telling the organisation what they felt about the organisation. And because the customers weren't there in front of a person, they were just looking at a camera giving their opinions, and we played that back to the senior management team. And some of them were in tears by the end of it because they realised just how badly customers felt they were being treated. So there are lots of different ways in which leaders can be immersed in the process so that you can get them to the point where they're saying, you know what, irrespective of the business case and irrespective of trusted advice and all this stuff, we have to do this. We just have to do it. Forget all the logic anymore. We just have to go ahead and do it. So there are ways of being able to get there, which is great. Last 2 subjects. Next one is phasing the programme. Now, Sean Riseborough, who's now at Bupa, this is something that he's spoken about before with work that he did with Virgin Media and with Fidelity.
Yeah, I started talking about Fidelity.
He's an amazing speaker. I really enjoy listening to what he's got to say. And one of the arguments that he makes is that phasing the programme is really, really important, because what you're doing at the beginning of the programme, and this comes back to the point that you made about the guy that you want at the beginning of the process isn't necessarily the same guy that you want at the end of the process. Building phases around a project is really, really important for several different reasons. Is this something that you've come across and you've worked with?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to recognise the stresses and the strains that the organisation is under. It's not like everything stops. BAU will still happen. Yeah. You get to the end of the quarter and it won't be where you want to be. And there'll be other changes that will happen. There may be changes to personnel structure, new technologies, change things as they go along. And none of that stops just because customer experience is kind of getting the light shone onto it. So I think you have to break it up. You have to make sure as well that you kind of really get that bank of insight and knowledge that you need first of all. I mean, one of the areas I found really difficult to work with the customer experience is Kaizen. The kind of mentality that you sort of get 80% of the way there, and that's enough, and off you go. Whereas actually what I found is if you hang around for the 20%, that's where the gold comes from. But it doesn't mean that you have to get everything perfect first time. There's kind of a continuous improvement model that I've always kind of worked on, which is, you know, it's broken, make it work, make it better, make it best.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get that. That's the evolution of going through things. So be happy you've got something to the next level, because actually there's a danger that you create in some parts of the organisation a disproportionately excellent customer experience that the other parts of the business can't deliver upon.
Can't keep up with.
You know, so say you might turn around and say, well, this is really good, we can actually get to you, your product, within 6 hours.
Yeah.
Fabulous. And if I send it back and get a return of money, I think it's about 7 to 10 days it takes to do it. It's like, whoa!
Interestingly, if you improve part of the customer experience, but you don't improve the overall customer experience, in many ways, that can give the customer a worse overall customer experience, because you raise their expectations with one part of the experience, and then you've not kept up with the expectations during the other part. So I would argue that there are some times that if the organisation can't keep up, sometimes it's better doing nothing than it is just trying to do one thing in one area and raise the expectations too much.
I mean, customer experience is kind of, you know, the two things for me about customer experience is it demands consistency.
Yeah.
And if you can overlay that with authenticity, you've got the magic formula. You really have. So yes, you've got to phase it. You've got to kind of recognise that everyone has got to move along with you. And this is the point we said about leadership immersion earlier. I mean, if you just accelerate forward, all you're forced to do is to create stress and embarrassment and uncomfort and possibly revenue issues, possibly disengagement from parts of the business. So you've got to kind of phase it as you go through. I mean, there is, I guess, with a running when you're introducing a transformation program, you've got kind of your discovery, your design, development phases you kind of work through. But I think more about recognising the organisation is evolving, and therefore you identify the sorts of things that you're taking through. I had this conversation yesterday, actually. Should you, we were talking as a particular part of an operations of a company, and they are not delivering, and the actual branded experience is almost compensating. It's providing kind of a veneer over it, so that's getting kind of recognition.
That happens with Apple as well. Often the product isn't as good as the promise.
So the conversation we had yesterday was, well, do I continue to do that, or do I worry that at some point the crack will show and then we'll expose just how broken things are, or do we actually? And I think this was such a mature conversation from this particular CX leader. Do I sacrifice my budget to operations so that they can actually get up to speed with where they need to get to? And I think in terms of leadership, that's the sort of conversation around the table with others you need to be having. It's not a land grab. It's actually operations. Until you get there, you know, until we can make the brakes work, we're not selling this car.
And that's the right way of looking at customer experience, because as we said before, experience is delivered by every single part of the organisation. So, you know, surrendering budget and giving it to other functions within the business, in many ways it's breaking down the silos. It's making things happen.
You say silos. I mean, do you find that still is one of the biggest issues in kind of customer experience management, the silo mentality?
Yeah, absolutely, and which is why you have to start with a leadership team, because you know, it's all about land grabs. It's all about power at the top of the business, and very often they're thinking so much about arguments they have with each other that nobody's thinking about customers. And that, in my experience, going through that leadership immersion piece is really, really important, because all of a sudden people start looking at each other over the table and nodding and shrugging and going, "Oh yeah, I've been that difficult person in the past." But in terms of the phasing of things, it's interesting that what you've said about the phasing and making sure that everybody's up to speed. The initial phases that Sean Riseborough's spoken about, and I've been using this as well, is, first of all, I know that it's important that we focus on the 20% and not just the 80%, as you spoke about from a Kaizen perspective. But often what I found is that within the first 1 or 2 phases, if you can deliver quick wins, it really does help, because all of a sudden everybody within the organisation is starting to buy in. But one of the difficult things that might have to happen in the first 2 phases of the project is making some difficult decisions, and that might include making redundancies and negative things, because sometimes organisations can be so badly damaged that we talk about customer experience and employee experience and how they're inextricably linked, and we have to give our employees a great experience in order to live a good customer experience. But sometimes employees look at the organisation and they know that it's broken, and then they know that they're going to have to be, major changes and that redundancies might happen, and few people might need to be sacrificed for the greater good. And that is a very counterintuitive and difficult conversation to have. But quick wins, doing the difficult things, getting to standard, getting to ahead of the game, and then finally getting to world class, which I think is similar to the model that Sean Riseborough has spoken about, phasing it in that way, because at each of those different stages you need to be focusing on different objectives, you need different types of people, you need different types of structures, etc., etc. So from my perspective, phasing, if you try and do it all at once, it's just...
And there is a danger that you parade, maybe a satisfaction score, you come top of the chart, and you push that out there, because that then says to me as a consumer, you're brilliant. And you go, no, we're getting there, that's one particular aspect we're really good at. You've got to be very careful about kind of that projection, because then if I am thinking brilliant, well, forgive me, but give me the Disney experience every time now.
Yeah,
it's like, well, no, we didn't mean it like that. We just wanted to kind of demonstrate internally we were doing quite well.
And the thing is, if you deliver far ahead of the expectations, but you can't do that consistently, the problem is you raise expectations and then you can't continue delivering on it. That happened with Apple when they launched, I think it was the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S. And the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S was so significantly better than the iPhone 3 that people were wowed by it. And then all of a sudden, when the iPhone 5 came out, it was only a tiny bit better than the iPhone 4, and that created enormous problems for people because they weren't shifting the paradigm at all, and there was enormous dissatisfaction from customers as well.
And that phasing thing you talk about, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone would agree, but it's good to get your view that, actually, we're getting to world class. Is world class, and is it a realistic ambition for some organisation?
No, for some organisations,
one step ahead was enough. But if I'm sitting there and, I don't know, maybe my job is I'm an online retailer for car batteries.
Yeah.
I mean, is it important for me to be world class in my in car battery world? Or,
it depends what world class means as well, because Aldi would hardly call themselves a world class retailer, but they've got an amazing business model, and you could argue that in some ways it is world class, but it's not the best ever retail experience you're going to have.
You had this discussion the other day that actually, I could say you're the number one webinar producer of customer experience content, which you clearly are, and that's it. That's your badge.
Is that what I'm going to be in the future?
That's what you could be in the future. So actually, you can define world class. If you want to be world class, be world class.
But you're quite right there. World class isn't always the thing that some organisations should be measuring.
And up in that space, I mean, so referring to Professor Glass, if you kind of ask him what it is again, he would say there's only 3% of the world's brands who are world class, and that is the optimum ROI that organisation can achieve for the sector it's in and the investment it's making into customer experience.
Yeah.
So that is a really kind of it's a scientific and an award-winning kind of definition of what world class could be, and that's a very small club. A very small club indeed. So if you go out and say I want to be world class, and then you're going to get and go, we didn't get there. Well, you didn't need to say, I'm this year going to do an awful lot of running. I saw a fabulous fundraiser the other day, Jamie McDonald, who ran 200 marathons across Canada.
Wow!
Now I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to run. I'm going to run as much as I possibly can.
I'm going to run the bath.
Year.
That's all I'm going to do.
I'll run as much as I possibly can, and that will be the benchmark that I'm going to kind of set myself. I could say I'll do 200, and then I'm going to fail. But so I think understanding just to kind of how to quantify and position it, and the message that gives off internally in terms of, do we believe we're going to do this?
Yeah.
Is this the same company that you and I kind of worrying about how kind of holding it all together here? So it's It's very important.
Got to be realistic.
Can I get the advantage of posing the last question to you?
Okay.
Privilege. Is that right?
Yes, please go ahead.
So the last question I see on the list is, how do you prioritise customer experience issues? And I guess, is this issues and improvements, or? So
from my perspective, thank you very much for posing the question to me. From my perspective, this is a key leadership issue. So you've already made the decision to do a program. You've gone through maybe a customer journey mapping exercise, which is identified the way that we work is we identify pain points, moments of truth, commercial opportunities, and wow opportunities. And I've had conversations with various different people, like Alan Pennington, who says, I don't like wow opportunities, it's a horrible word. But there's the whole wow basically is just an overall phrase that means getting ahead of customer expectations. But you come up with, and when we did a customer journey mapping exercise recently with an airline, we came up with about 400 ideas that came out of the customer journey mapping exercise. For leadership, they then need to go, okay, which of these 400 are we going to focus on? Because you might build a transformation program.
Yeah.
So the process that we always go through at Jericho is to sit down with the client and say, okay, well, we need to look at each of these individual issues according to how difficult are they to implement versus how much impact, positive or negative, do they have on the organisation. So those things that have been identified, which are really easy to implement and have a significant impact, go right to the top of the list. And those ones which have very, very little impact and are very, very difficult to do probably end up falling off the bottom of the list. So that's the way in which we've gone through the issue prioritisation process. What about yourself?
Well, the way we do it depends on the client's investment into understanding what matters most to the customer. So if you understand what changes, I alluded to this earlier, but if you can know what changes behaviour, so I was going to go that way, but the experience now means I'm going this way, you can measure the actual shift in share a category. So you can actually say that we will gain this much share a category, convert that into a commercial value, and that becomes your ranking for what matters most to your customers. You get that. And then on the other axis, we put in what matters most to the company. I think customer experience isn't there to set the targets. The organisation sets that, of course it's part of that discussion, but the organisation will say we need to increase renewals by 14%, we need to lower claims by 12%, expend it, whatever those things are, those items are, they're what matter most to the organisation. And like yourself, the things in the bottom left that don't bother the company, don't bother customers, can we understand why we're doing these, please? And sometimes, quite often, there you go, there's your expenditure saving, you've done that one already. And then you've got different areas, you've got your things that matter to your customers but don't matter to the organisation. Well, you've got to improve these things because these matter to these customers, or you've got to realise you're recruiting the wrong customers. You've got to think about that.
Absolutely, and that's a really significant issue. Some people talk about losing customers because you're not delivering what customers want, and you've got to ask yourself, okay, if you changed what you delivered in order to meet what customers want, are you sticking with your core competencies? And at the end of the day, if what the customer wants isn't part of your, or what some of the customers want is not part of your core competence, would you be better off just pointing that customer in a different direction?
And it is, it's not a conversation for this one, it's an interesting conversation around the share of category, because if someone's buying 5 shops a week from Asda, and someone else is buying 5 shops but only 1 from Asda, they're choosing to go to others, then the way the kind of behavioural model would work is to say these people are 5 times more important. This voice, these people come to us all the time, so what we are doing at the moment is actually working for these people. It's not working for these people, they choose to go somewhere else. Now you might go, well, we need to figure out how to get them over. Well, the ones you'll get over are those that value what you're doing here already better. And I think sometimes customer experience is not about changing the organisation, it's actually about bringing out what they're really, really good at. So therefore, you then have the last place, which is this really matters most to us, and it matters most to the organisation.
Sure.
Sing about it. Wow. I mean, if you're going to build a signature experience, build it in this corner. This is what you're great at, as far as what your customers want, and what your organisation is driving for. So focus your attention here. Direct Line, you did that very well a few years ago when they kind of realised that what customers really valued was the claims process.
Yeah, of course, in all insurance.
Of course, yeah. So what you then do is you give people an essence of that claims experience without the claim. You know, because that's what matters most. That reassurance, that actually, should things go wrong, you'll deliver it for me, but without actually going through the claims process.
I think Hiscox did something very similar as well.
Did piece with them, yeah. So it's and that's the thing, is to kind of land in that. So I guess not that dissimilar. It's about understanding what we can get at as well. Of course, you need but that's really hard. We ain't never doing that.
Sure.
So you need that. Is it how much effort and energy? I think the other thing as well, which both of us would include, but probably wouldn't bring out, is how disruptive to the business would it be?
Absolutely.
You know, because if it's a case of, well, that will work, but we need to now, rather than have a hub and a spoke model, we're going to centralise everything. You know, so there'll be no European offices anymore. It'll all be here in the UK. It'll all be here in Paris. We'll be in one location. That will change everything. Wow, you know, kind of the disruption we're going to put the organisation through for this customer experience gain. I'm not sure this is something that we've all got the...
Well, the thing is, if it disrupts the organisation, then ultimately it's likely to disrupt the customer experience, and it's going to...
But customer experience can sometimes become a bit blinkered. You know, especially when it says, well, everyone does customer experience, so, you know, you all got to do what we do, and it's not. You've got to kind of, back to that, fit in around the trading team, back to that, being a leader in customer experience, is kind of recognise how to do it, as well as what you're doing.
Cool. Okay, I think we've run out of time. We've covered all 6 subjects.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
That's been great, as always.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great experience. I'm sure we'll do it again. We're going to come on. The next subject is going to be around culture, and I'm going to be having a conversation with Adrian Snook from Learning Accelerators about that particular area. So thank you very much, Christopher. Formal handshake, and I look forward to the next episode of CX Club.
Thank you for watching.
Cheers.